everybody, welcome back to the Rich Artist Friday class, our 30-minute free quickies where I just sort of throw a little bit of input, hopefully some inspiration, a hell lot of knowledge at you, anything that is sort of typically on my mind, like on the forefront of my mind. That is typically the kind of topic that I prefer talking about on these quick little classes. And as you might have noticed, we underwent a little bit of a rebrand, and I'm calling the program the Rich Artist Program. So today's class is all around, well, I guess why that is. And I know that that is maybe an oxymoron to a lot of people that read it at first. It is also a little bit, provocative, which it's meant to be. Because rich artist is not something that we commonly pair together very often. We all know this very almost glamorized idea of the starving artist life, the starving artist lifestyle. But when I was thinking about what I want to use this program in all of my classes and my workshops and my coachings for, I was thinking, well, rich as in abundant, and abundant in so many different things, because I think a lot of us have this very fixed visualization of how our career will go and to what extent our capabilities reach, especially in terms of business. And take it from me, from somebody that has worked for numerous extremely successful photographers in their field, and no matter how talented and amazing they were as artists, all of them hands down were fantastic business people. So I'm really grateful, and I feel very fortunate that I got to see behind the scenes of how they ran their admin and how they did their accounting and how they ran their studios and how they managed their businesses in order to become rich artists. And when I say rich, I don't just mean money, I mean abundant in so many different areas. I mean, yes, rich in resources, also financial resources, because that then allowed them to have the funds and the means to be as creative as they possibly wanted to without being reliant on somebody else funding them in those moments where they just wanted to do it. And we all know what that feels like. But also they were abundant in opportunities that came from clients. They were abundant in clients that were very well aligned with the kind of work that they were interested in doing. They were abundant in clients that valued them as artists, that were interested in the collaboration, that were interested in their input, and that were interested in harmonious relationships with these artists, which was amazing to get to witness. They were abundant in recognition and in visibility. Some of them had great networks, or some of them have built great communities for themselves that they could use as a resource and also as an audience for their art, and also as a reflection of how their art was being perceived, or to kickstart the conversations that they were trying to initiate through their art. They were abundant in opportunities, abundant in connections and solidarity with their fellow artists. That was something that came a little bit later. As I was working for photographers, I found some photographers that, weren't struggling as much with this competitive attitude where every other photographer was pure competition and there was no connection, there was no community between them. I started working for some amazing female artists that had all female crews that have supported me in my career since, up until today, and I haven't assisted in a couple of years now, which was so insanely refreshing to see. So when I say the Rich Artist Program, those are all the things that I mean about that, because that is what I want for the artists that I know, you guys, that I see your work online, but I myself has been there where when I was trying to kickstart my career, I had this idea of the things that were possible for me and the things that I was capable of, and also the things that shouldn't be a part of my career path. And business was one of the things that was, attached to a lot of negative stigma in my head. And can't blame myself. I can't blame any other artists that feel the same. And I know there is a lot of us, because we get presented this very one way of doing business. It is typically a very masculine, dominant approach to business, to marketing, meaning like that it's not based on intuition. It's more this thing that has worked for a very small select group of people within the society for a long time that were already privileged and held a lot of power and knew how to utilize that to their advantage to build successful businesses. But take it from me, that there's so many different ways of doing business that are so refreshing. And when I found a way to actually identify with being a business owner as well as an artist, and it started to feel authentic to me, where I didn't feel like I had to bulldozer myself into being a certain type of way in order to be successful. And I know we all kind of train ourselves to be really good at that. We just kind of like adapt a lot of grit and a lot of strong will in order to persevere. But the downside to that is that it burns us out, and it oftentimes robs us of some of the most precious creative energy that we have. And the amazing news here is that we are creatives, which means that we are creators. We are innately creative, which means that we have the capability of being imaginative and of visualizing possibilities for ourselves. Otherwise, we wouldn't be good at what we are doing. And this rich artist sort of identity, it is not just tactics, and that is a big part of it, of actually running a successful business our own and learning the tactics and exploring the different approaches to it to find something authentic. But it is just as much identity based work. At least it was for me, until I changed the way that I saw myself and the way that I could picture myself functioning in a well-established, successful business, not a lot changed. Like, I know a lot of us are always trying to change the outside factors, as in like, well, if I only write more emails, if I only become more productive, if I only hustle harder, then I'll be successful, which is such an emotional torture, because you'll never get rid of this feeling that you could be doing more. And I honestly, I still feel like that so often today. But when I finally started realizing that if I can hold the right identity that affirms me in the way that I want to see myself show up in my business, I unlocked a lot of energy in order to actually be productive and get the things done, alongside with knowing, what things are to be prioritized in outreach routines or whatever it is. But just for the sake of today, I really wanted to invite you guys to ask yourself, well, what would my identity have to look like in order for me to actually have the career that I want to have? Because the how and the when are things that oftentimes just get figured out along the way. I think we all know that, for example, with photography, we get better ultimately by just doing it. So that progress happens along the way. But when it comes to success and abundance in success, with all of the things that I just mentioned, a lot of it is identity based. And I want to give you guys an example. And I don't know if some of you have ever dabbled in identity based work, but to me, when I learned this was like mind blowing. So there's this thing called an identity loop. And I want to demonstrate on an example of how you view yourself really affects the way that you show up in your business, and ultimately the results that you see, showing up again and again. And these can be positive things, but these can also be negative things. So let's say you have the identity of, I live the struggling artist lifestyle, or for example, my identity for a long time was I can't be a business person if I want to be a famous, well-respected artist, because those two clashed for me. And I felt that if I became too focused on business, marketing things, all of these things, then I would almost be betraying my identity as an artist. So based on the identity of I am not good at business, or I am just an artist, or I am a struggling artist, we obviously think thoughts that affirm that. So for me, for example, these thoughts would be, well, if I become successful at business, then I'll be a business person, I won't be an artist, I won't be a creative. Or if I become too successful at business, then my art won't be authentic, or whatever it was. Based on these thoughts hold energy, right? If you wake up and you only say mean things to yourself, you will not feel good about yourself. You won't want to go skipping down the street or run a half marathon if you're feeling low. You know what I mean? So based on the thoughts that I'm thinking, based on my identity, I feel a certain type of way. And if that's how I feel, like that's very energy draining. That doesn't necessarily make me want to go out there and send 20 emails to strangers being like, hey, I want to work with you. Or even if I do, it's very hard to motivate myself to do them, or to have faith in the fact that it'll be effective, right? And based on the way that I feel, I make certain decisions, like not sending that email, or sending a couple of emails but then never following up, or just doing things sporadically, or never posting my work online because I've already talked myself out of it not being good enough. And based on those actions that I'm taking, I am making certain experiences that reaffirm my identity. Kapoosh. You know? Because by not sending that email, by not posting my work, by not asking people for help, by not approaching people that I want to work with, I reaffirm through the experience of not being successful that I am not successful. I hope that makes sense to you guys. So there's no point in me going and sending more emails, or no point in me going and, trying a different tactic of how I approach people, or how I do my outreach emails, or how I compose my emails, or whatever, if I still hold on to this identity that I can't be successful at business if I'm a true artist, if I'm a true creative, or I'm not allowed to make a shit ton of money if I want to be a respected artist, respected by other artists that might be holding on to this struggling artist identity. Or that I'm a sellout if I start actually marketing and promoting whatever my business endeavors are while being an artist. I see a comment, 100%. We definitely sabotage ourselves by seeing ourselves in certain ways. It's insane how much our lives and careers can change if we change things in our brain. Our reality equals our brains. I am so happy that you understand that, because it is one thing to have heard it once. It is another thing to actually realize that self-sabotage is something we typically do on the daily. I still sabotage myself sometimes. So if we want to make different experiences, we have to change the way that we see ourselves first. And the good news here is that, like I said, we're pretty good at visualizing things. So I wanted to use today to sort of encourage you guys to think about, okay, well, can I visualize a version of myself that is abundant in all of these things that I just listed for you guys? I see a comment here. Do you have any tips on breaking the patterns? Yes. So obviously the most effective thing is to start adapting a new identity. But in order to create change, it takes the steps of awareness first, in order to then recognize that that is what you are doing. And that is sometimes the hardest part, and honestly the most courageous step as well, which the smallest amount of people are even willing to go there. So kudos to you guys if you are starting to think about these things. A thing that can be really helpful is to just make lists of things that you recognize you believe about yourself. And you can do this in categories, rewatch this video and take down these notes of these different areas of business and be honest with yourself and write down, what do I believe about this? So when I say I am abundant in clients that value me and that want to pay me exactly what I am asking for, what do you believe about yourself in regards to clients? Do you have the identity of clients are always trying to lowball me? No client ever wants to pay the asking price, or I am constantly undervalued. When I talk about resources, what are your identities based around money? Is your identity, I can't make money off of my art, I can't get rich with my art, or my art isn't good enough yet in order to get paid top prices for it? Is that true though? Because sometimes I see artists that are so freaking successful and I look at their art and I know that their quality is by no means better than so many other people's. So, I think that's another way that we sabotage ourselves, isn't it? Because it isn't necessarily true. Connections with other creatives is your identity that my success means that I will always be taking away opportunities from others. If that's what you believe, it's going to be very hard for you to actually attract the success that you want, because it doesn't feel good to believe that about yourself, right? So the best point where you can start is to write these things down and take a good look at them, and then ask yourself, well, what would be sort of the flip to that identity? What would be the highest vibrational identity in order to counteract this? So if my identity is I can't get paid what I want for my art, an affirmation to sort of counteract that would be, clients love paying me exactly what I am asking for because they are so amazed by my talent and my skills. Or clients love collaborating with me. They love every interaction they have with me. They feel so good every time they get to talk to me. They have the best time at their own job when they know that I'm there working with them on a project, that it turns into whatever Sophie is asking for, we want to make sure that we can pay that because we value Sophie so much. So, and these things, it takes time to really start believing that. And the first couple of times that you tell yourself that, it's going to be hard for you to be like, absolutely, that is my new identity. But that's why they are called affirmations, because the more often you can remind yourself of these things, the more you're rewiring your brain. And you'll notice that if you can start telling yourself these things, like I have a post-it hanging above my desk right now that just says, I am a successful photographer. So simple when you think about it, but honestly, guys, yesterday I was laying in bed and I had a massive to-do list in my head, and I had a lot of self-doubts that I woke up with, and I felt like, was it even worth getting up and doing these new posting tactics that I just came up with, or trying this new thing on social media or something like that? And so many doubts became so loud in my head right away that I needed to sort of recognize that that's what I was doing and tell myself, Sophie, you are a successful photographer. And if I am a successful photographer, if I can take a minute and picture myself as such, even if some of the proof that I am seeing around me might not be affirming me in that right away, if I can adapt that identity, then I can go after it. It's very tricky if you're looking for proof for an identity that you are just newly adapting in your outside world in order to make you feel like you actually are. Does that make sense? Like, that's kind of ass backwards. If you are saying, I am a rich artist, and you look into your bank account and there's no money in there, it's going to be very hard for you to recognize that, like, no, I can be a rich artist, because the way that I identify now affects the action that I take later, and then it brings the results with it. That is how you manifest what your identity is affirming, but it is a continuous, repetitive process. I see a comment. It's quite heartbreaking when you realize that you're your own harshest critic, and it's so difficult to break through it, but so worth it to work through it. Affirmations and manifestation is so important. Absolutely. And even if you just use affirmations in order to feel better about yourself, you'll have a lot more energy to actually go after things. But productivity is not the end goal here. The end goal is that you know that if you start showing up differently, people will start perceiving you differently. Opportunities will start flocking to you more. And these are a lot of different areas of business that I know we all have limiting beliefs around. So it's really worth taking a look at it and recognizing that that's what we are doing. I used to, like, for example, if you say, I hate retouching. I used to say, I hate retouching. I hate post-production. That I never wanted to do it because I felt like so many hours of my valuable time would go into it, and I wasn't even getting paid the money for all of these hours that I thought I should be. Until I changed this sort of, and I was affirming this every single time by saying, I hate retouching. So I needed to be like, no, Sophie, you could be sitting at a lawyer's firm desk 9 to 5 every single day now, hating your life. You chose this. So I needed to find the gratitude in what I was doing, even if there are parts of our job that we don't like or that make us uncomfortable or that challenge us, and find a way to affirm to us that we can still draw energy out of them. And yes, can you outsource some of these things sooner or later? Yes. Should you? Probably yes, if that fits into, the way that you want your career to go. But by saying I hate retouching, I wasn't helping myself and I wasn't helping anybody else. If I can say, I love that I get to run a movie on the TV while I do this, what a freaking privilege. So that I could start feeling differently about it, so that I could have more energy to actually sit down and get it done. And in the end, it wasn't even that bad. Does that make sense? But we're getting a little bit off topic here. So, can you adapt the identity of I am a rich artist, I am an abundant artist, I am a successful artist, I am abundant in confidence in everything that I show up, I am abundant in success because everything I touch is of interest to people, it is interesting to people. I am abundant in creativity, I am abundant in balance between running a successful business and having enough time to rejuvenate and be free and creatively minded and spontaneous in my business, because that is the life and the career path that I choose. That is all we have time for today, but start thinking about these things and start asking yourself, okay, what parts of my business rob me of the most energy, also mentally? And write them down and take a look at, okay, what is the identity that is leading to me thinking these thoughts day in, day out? Because I promise you there's an identity behind it that is making you think these things over and over again. So it's no wonder that you keep seeing the same results or not seeing the same results over and over again. And try that out, whatever it takes for you to remind yourself that, no, I no longer choose this identity because I have realized that it is not serving me anymore. Choose something new for yourself. And also grant yourself permission to choose differently. This is between you and yourself. Nobody else is involved in this process. Will there be people that might not understand that that's what you're doing? Probably. But do you want to sacrifice your dreams for the sake of maybe making other people comfortable? Or do you finally say, okay, I'm at a point in my career where I am deciding to choose myself, no matter what that looks like for yourself, and at least give it a shot, because the worst thing would be not trying in the first place, isn't it? whether you believe in this already or not. So I wholeheartedly encourage you to at least open your mind up to giving it a try, because I really, really wish for you guys to start making the experiences that you crave, because you deserve to. So I'm so happy that you guys are in here and that you are taking the time to do this kind of work. Let me tell you, you are one of the very rare ones out there. So I'm super, super proud of you guys. We do this class every single Friday. So tell all of your friends, maybe tell a colleague that you know will benefit from hearing some of these things. And not all of our lessons are identity-based stuff. Some of it is more tactical things or anecdotes from my own career. We cover it all. So I love having you guys here, and if you're looking to go a little bit deeper into this work, then hit me up for some one-on-one coaching. And for you guys that are in here live, I would love to know real quick what your biggest takeaway was. I saved the chat also just for myself to go through. I see here a comment. Thank you, Sophie, for always being honest with us about your own fears and struggles. It helps a lot to know you're not alone, and also for showing up every Friday for all of us and giving us wisdom for free. Absolutely. You're so welcome. And then I see a comment. Thank you so much. This was really insightful. I will check out YouTube for the other ones. Yes, so these recordings go up on YouTube from now on out. So if you ever miss a lesson, they will be live probably the following week of these Fridays. And yeah, I love you guys so much. See you next Friday. Mwah!